back to Sour SaaS, the podcast for go-to-market operators to come on and have some contrarian takes on what's actually happening in B2B and not what's just best practice. Today's guest, I don't usually do intros, but this one feels special, so I'm gonna do my best. Don't kill me if I butcher it. But today's guest is the head of revenue marketing at Cognition, and they're the company behind Devin. But before B2B marketing, he was in Charleston, South Carolina, learning hospitality. And so he would learn that great dining experiences with 50% food, 50% service. And a lot of that service was just the small gestures, the warm undertones, just the thoughtfulness that goes into it. And so now you find him applying these things to B2B events, and now he's gathering some of the greatest execs across B2B as a whole to these things called supper clubs. And he's doing them across New York City, London, Paris, and many more cities where attendees are leaving saying, this is very different from any other executive dinner that I've been to. And so today he's going to break down a lot of his frameworks onto why B2B events or B2B dinners are so boring and forgettable and they feel very transactional, how to make it one of the most memorable and hospitable experiences without being expensive. And then lastly, what's his framework for how does he attract some Fortune 500 level executives who are not just being that, but becoming advocates for his dinners. And so without further ado, I have the great pleasure of having Zach Diamond on the Sour SaaS podcast.
Awesome. Isaiah, thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So just a little bit, the hospitality background, how did that come about?
I don't know if it came about in any specific way besides being young and broken in college and needing a job. Yeah. So I think I lucked out in Charleston, just needed a job, found a job at a restaurant, and then Charleston is just a city defined by its hospitality. You can go on a touristy tour around the city, around King Street, around Market Street, and they'll even talk about this. Like, it's very ingrained with the culture. Mm. When I go back and visit, I forget how much of a topic of conversation restaurants are. And it's almost like reality TV or sports where it's like, which restaurant traded which chef, which chef is opening a new place. It's like a topic of conversation. And, I don't want to discredit, after Charleston, I went to Madison, Wisconsin and worked in food and bev, worked at a cool place there. So it's not just Charleston itself, but I think the values that city really embodies are so strong around hospitality and experience, and even just the stereotypical Southern politeness of talking to your strangers when you're at a bar in a grocery store. It's like that has had such an impact on me, and it's something I try to imbue in all of my marketing.
Okay, so from Charleston to Wisconsin, I think you said New York City, LA. How did you get the B2B marketing from hospitality? Like, what was that pathway like?
That's a whole other question. The honest, I'm trying to figure out how to give you the quick synopsis here, but I made some friends. I think it also just had to do with being young and broke in college and trying to figure out how to make money. And I made a friend who hired me at his ad agency. Shout out Randy Goins. And this was 2014, 2011, something like, or 2013, 2014, something like that. So Facebook ads were ripping. You could target job title, city, you could basically hone in on the exact person you wanted to target on Facebook. And, cookies were abundant and there were no GDPR rules. So learned how to set up ad programs. After college, ended up working at a tech startup where I set up a lot of their ad programs, and that extended into sales and marketing, and it just kind of grew from there. So I hate to say it, but it's a lot of chance.
Hey, that's okay. We shout out to chance. It got you here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna kick it off with the first question, but before I do, we don't call it Sour and SaaS for no reason. And so I've learned from my mistakes, and I pre-opened these. So.
All right. I am a little nervous about this.
You should be.
I should be.
You should be. It might not be as crazy as you think, but I'm gonna kick it off with the first question as you eat that.
Wait, I eat this now?
Yeah, go ahead and eat now.
All right. Oh yeah.
Yes, perfect.
That's sour.
That's the look I was looking for. So you've written that your ambition is never to have attendees leaving thinking that was great. Now you want them texting each other afterwards saying that was incredible. Walk me through what that actually means in practice, and what's the difference between a good B2B event and a genuinely hospitable one?
Yeah, and I want to frame it not just around events, but marketing in general. I think that good marketing is memorable and it's different. You kind of see this play out in courses of years where one company has a really good idea, they do it, it's novel, it's big, people remember it, and then other companies try to replicate it, and then it gets to a point where it's trite and mundane, and then something else needs to come up. So it's never do what other companies do, it's be original. I mean, you can think of like Coinbase's QR code at the Super Bowl. Like people were texting about that. Like that was crazy, you know. But now if anyone else does it, it's a replica of Coinbase. So when I think about events, how can you make it distinctly different? And I actually would argue that it's easier to do an event than it would be as a Super Bowl commercial, as an example, because you can add in really human touch points. It doesn't have to be this bold, creative, new, like millions of eyes on you, big swing, but you can actually test things out in real time that might be really manual and they might not be automated. But doing a handwritten note, noticing someone wanting something and making sure it happens, there's a ton of examples, but leaving someone with an experience where they think about it afterwards, they text their friend, and it doesn't even have to be product specific. It just has to be like, I can't believe I went to a Cognition event and this is what they did for me. And that is how I think of events and differences in experiences and getting the word out.
So I can almost guarantee you've probably been to other events outside of the ones that you've run. What's the telltale sign for you that an event is very transactional versus like experiential and hospitable? Like what's that red flag for you?
The red flag for me is a lack of event flow. So there's a very subtle balance that you're trying to strike with an event between overly scripted and underly scripted. Nobody wants to be told what to do all the time, right? Like that's just how it is. Like, so overly scripted, I think I don't see that too often. But underly scripted, I actually think is probably a bit more dangerous because you come into an event, you don't know what you're supposed to talk about. You're with a bunch of strangers. Like, this is the funny part about doing it in multiple cities is like I can throw an event in New York and have pretty low scripting and everyone just knows what to do. Because like New York is just a very social city. But you take that into other job titles, other geos, like you look at different personalities and you never want one person who's super social running the show and then a bunch of introverts or just people who don't know how to or who aren't as comfortable in these situations, like unsure of where to act. So it's what shows me that someone knows what they're doing is having really strong intros of why we're here. This is a great moment to bring in the product. Like I think being somewhat self-aware is something I like to do in these situations. So I'll always make fun of my sales guy and say, hey, this isn't a sales event. Like, sorry, Graham. And that's always a fun thing to do because then it's like, it humanizes it. Everyone knows that we're trying to sell them. Like we don't need to hide it. So just calling that out. But it's also a really great way to mention the product. Like we're here tonight to discuss what this means for your organization. You're surrounded by peers in a way that you likely wouldn't have been. So more than anything, we want you to connect with your peers on the challenges you're dealing with, how you're thinking about solving it, how they're thinking about solving it, the differences. And then, of course, we're here to answer any questions that you have. And by setting that tone, you get people thinking of, okay, I don't need to, ask the person next to me their life story or get to know them intimately. Like the whole game of small talk is, I think, pretty exhausting for most people. So rather, how do you set it up in a way to where people can have their own conversations? Like, again, we're not overly scripting it, but there's guidelines around where they should be at any time, what they should be talking about, what they should be doing. Like that to me shows that there's been a level of thought. And I think to tie it back to hospitality, the last time I was in Charleston, we went to a restaurant, Fig, and the waiter comes up to the table, server, and he says, is this your first time here? Some of us yes, some of us no. It was great. Let me walk you through the menu. Here's what I like to do. First course, like you have to try the tomato tart. That's what we're known for. I recommend getting 3 to 5 per table. Given that there's 4 of you, and then the main course, like happy to help here. I recommend 2 to 3 dishes, depending on how hungry you are. Just flag me down. Happy to course this however you want, but here's how I recommend doing it. And they give you like really strict guidelines.
Yeah.
And that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
It's not this like, it's not groveling or like sucking up to the customer. It's like, you're in good hands. You're going to have a good time here because I'm here to guide you through this. And that's what I like to add to my events.
So how do you, if people are coming in knowing that they're not going to be sold on a product, but that's going to be a very deep topic of discussion. Because I've been to events that were on two extremes. It's either it really was just a product demo, just
right.
with food. And on the other end, it was like there was no mention of the product. Like it was cool, but walked away, didn't know what the heck you did. How are you balancing that of we're not pushing the product too much, but then we're also not letting it just be like this social event? Like how do you just walk that fine line? Because I feel like it is a very fine line.
Yeah, so it depends on the event format. And it's really a conversation that needs to happen before you decide which event. And this is actually a learning moment of mine over the past few months is like, we talk about these supper club events as an example. Call it 15 customers in a room, intimate. That does best around pipeline maturation. So the most impact you see there is you have lower funnel executives, economic buyers, decision makers. You have a few customers come in, you have a really, really great conversation. And then the lower funnel buyers, you see that move faster because they've had this conversation. You add the credibility by putting them next to their peers who are already customers. There's just a sense of trust that's built. But if you're going for an entirely cold audience, net new pipeline generation, then I don't think that format is the right approach because, to your point, we're not openly discussing the product. We're not educating them. So then what you see, and there's obviously some gray areas, and it's fine to add cold contacts to exec dinners. But if you're really looking for results, then you want to create a program that educates them a little bit more. So there's no one size fits all approach, but I do think you have to look at what the attendee is looking for. So if you have a bunch of cold contacts and you're inviting them to an exec dinner and you're saying we're going to really shape this around the discussion of how we can use our product to solve their problems, but they don't use your product, they don't know your product, that's going to be a pretty bad conversation, right?
100%.
So instead it would be, what is the event that we can host to actually educate them? We did a Porsche driving center experience at the beginning of this year in Los Angeles. It's like, you can go drive cars. So that's the hook, right? Like come drive Porsches. That's great. And then after that, we had a presentation from our field CTO, and then that led into conversation. And there were actually some customers. There was a big mix. But that to me is probably a better play for lead capture, conversation starters, something where there's a customer panel where we're talking about, here's your job title, here's your industry, here's how we're thinking about these challenges, like going more content focused depending on the audience. And then if they already know your product, that's when you can go a little bit more unstructured and lead less with content.
Cool. So speaking of like Fortune 500 execs, as I was doing my research, so you said that they aren't really impressed by caviar and like these expensive rooftops because they go to like 3 Michelin star restaurants anyway, so they're not really fazed by you trying to bring caviar. So what do they actually care about? At these events?
So I mean, I want to be clear that it's still, the food is very important.
Of course.
It's not that they aren't impressed by it; it's that they expect it. So there's still a large delta in not having good food, but it should be table stakes. And when they come to my event, the level of job title that I'm targeting, the level of seniority I'm targeting, they're not coming for the free food, right? I might be going for free food, but they're not.
Yeah.
And so what they're expecting is a few things. One that I think is often overlooked is their personal brand. They want to be in the scene. They want to be looked at as decision makers or as influencers, and that's especially true for current customers. I'm fortunate to work at a very hot AI company right now, so I actually truly believe that our early adopters, our customers who are most ingrained in our product, they see that they're pushing the future of what software engineering looks like, and they are making that happen in their organization, which is true, right? Like they're doing something novelly different than what their same job was doing 5 years ago. So they want a chance to talk about that because that's their personal brand. So giving them that opportunity to have that conversation with their peers is really important. So we having parity of job title across the table, and not just for dinners, but events in general. Like if you're bringing in a C-level person to talk about your product, it's really important that C-level people are also in the audience, or at least some equivalent of that. If they're in an industry that is slow moving, which regulated industries, it's just nature of the game. Oftentimes they know that they're not moving fast enough. Like it's just a fact. Like talk to federal folks, government folks. It's like, yeah, obviously we're not moving as fast as the private sector. Do we wish we could? Of course, but we're dealing with very, very confidential information. We can't just go rip AI products and see what happens.
Yeah,
understood. So what they want to do is have better insight into what the private sector or what less regulated industries are doing, so that they know what's going to come inevitably and at a slower rate. So how do they get educated by the early adopters? So that's a very symbiotic relationship, right? You have the fast-moving tech adopters who are pushing boundaries, who want to talk because that boosts their personal brand.
1000%.
And then you have the people who need to learn, who are in regulated industries, who aren't moving fast enough, who want to hear from that. Creating that conversation and that discourse between those two groups of people is magic. Like that is, if like a company that can facilitate that is doing the right thing, because that is pretty hard to come by, and you're not going to get it at like a massive industry conference, right? And then lastly, I think it is more specific to the company of having insight into the mechanics of so for Cognition as an example, like they want to know who our customers are, how we're thinking about things, what new features are coming out. Like they want to stay in the zeitgeist and aware of what we're doing.
Got it. So, because I mean, if you have such high-level people, high-level execs coming to your dinners, but a lot of like B2B marketers are treating these dinners as just purely a lead gen machine. What does that do for a brand's reputation to treat such a pivotal event purely as a lead gen? For like, what does that do to the perception? What does that do to their placement in the market and things like that?
It's a good question. I mean, I think more than anything, it's just you lose relationships, you lose people who would come back. So when I go to New York or we're hosting an event, we have a Rolodex of people that we know will come to our events, and they're high level customers, and obviously we have to loop in their EAs and all of this, but like we have people that can come back. I think people talk more than we realize, and if it's a bad event, then I don't know how much, like they're not going to go leave a negative Yelp review or whatever, but like they might not come back to their event, or when someone texts them and says, hey, just got an invite, like should I go? They might just say no. But this is also why I like events so much, is I actually think the negative side is pretty manageable. Like you throw a bad event and it's a point in time and a few people saw it, it would have to be pretty bad to ruin your company reputation. But like look at what's happening with McDonald's CEO right now, and like this post where he took too small of a bite. Like he's getting ragged. Yeah. He's getting, like, everyone is hating on him. So like that is bad for McDonald's. Yeah. And that is a digital artifact that is not going away. So events actually, to me, and depends on the event. Large conferences probably this isn't applicable to, but if you're talking about a smaller person-to-person event, there's just less room for error, given that you set it up the right way, versus like digital, more eyes, more permanent, easily shared. There's just a lot of room for error.
What do you think is broken in that system? Or even better question, what do you think is the reason that like a event marketer might be so focused purely on lead gen? Is it job security? Like, what do you think is the thing that's kind of broken in the system?
I think that it is so lead gen. It's a much more measurable system. So if you're talking about a top-down event where you're inviting, C-levels as an example, those often aren't the primary contact on an opportunity. In Salesforce, like they're not the champion. They're not going through a linear funnel where you're tracking them as an MQL and an SQL and all these things. It's very anecdotal, and there are ways to measure it, but it's a much lower volume. So, you're talking about 15 people at a dinner. Like our larger events will have 75 to 100 people. So still small compared to like a lead gen campaign where you're nurturing thousands of contacts, right? Yeah. So I think that's one reason. I don't think that's broken. It's just being purposeful about the tactic and about the event itself. So if you're using an event for lead gen, then it has to be big. It has to be open to the masses, and it has to act like a funnel. And there's ways to do that, and we do that too. Like we do larger events. So it's not that it's broken. It's that if you're doing a smaller scale hospitality focused event and you're treating it as lead gen, you've already missed the purpose of why people are there before you've had it.
Okay. So what does genuine hospitality look like at a B2B event or in B2B context? Can you give me a specific example of something you do at Supper Club?
Yeah. So I think it's being very mindful of what other people in the room are thinking. And I think this extends outside of B2B events too, right? Like you go to someone's house and they see that you want to take your shoes off, and they come to you and they're like, "Hey, please take your shoes off." You're like, "Oh, finally, I feel more comfortable." Well, maybe that's a weird example, but like, when people anticipate your needs, that feels really good. So an example would be at this one dinner we did. There was a Spanish gentleman at the table. We always have wine. I always have just say keep bottles of wine coming if people are drinking. Like I don't want them to feel awkward about having to order a drink. And I see him scrutinizing the wine list, and I'm not a wine guy, so I generally take the server's recommendations, look at price, all that stuff. But I see him really scrutinizing it, so I called the server over, said when we run out of this bottle, make sure he picks the next bottle. And I've watched this interaction where ran out of the bottle, the server goes up to him, points to me and said, he said he wants you to order this next bottle, and this guy's face lit up, and I think that's a moment where I saw what was happening. I noticed it had nothing to do with our product or whatever, but I guarantee that it made his night more memorable and made him more engaged. And I actually do think we ended up moving that deal down the line. So it's how do I attribute that? That's not a Salesforce, that's not a Salesforce campaign, but it's moments like that.
How do you stay that keen in that environment when you're having to be social? You have a good amount of people that you have to talk to and connect. How are you staying aware of moments like that?
Well, this is where I think it really is on the role of the person facilitating this dinner. So for me, the marketer facilitating this dinner, we're talking about very, very technical software development. I'm not the expert. I should never be the expert. Yeah. I actually do I know enough to be dangerous? Absolutely. I have really absorbed this information. I've absorbed talk tracks, but I love saying to customers hey, I'm in marketing. I hope I did a good job regurgitating information. I'm trying to learn this stuff, and this was a great practice, but you're clearly at a level that's beyond me. Let me introduce you to so-and-so who can actually talk to you as a peer. That I love doing that. I never lose any amount of what does lose credibility if I'm oh, I don't know, let me talk. I do think it's important to know enough to have the conversation, but my role isn't to be the presenter or the smartest head in the room. My role is to notice the flow, to change the lights if it's too bright in there, to change the music if it's too loud. I am the host of that event. And it's a good point because it's really important for me to have the right internal people there to where I can draw back from everything except for doing that. So I might ask questions. I might give an introduction. Like I'm a very active participant, but I have an internal person in the room who is the speaker, who is the highlight, and that's obviously like either a founder or a C-level person, a lead engineer, someone who they see as someone that they want to learn from, not a marketer or a salesperson.
That's a lot of humility, actually. So I think there might be a lot of marketers who want to be the most technical in the room. Like, I want to be the front-facing person. But you're taking the role of like, hey, I'm just the connector, the facilitator, the mediator to kind of help all of this go. Yeah. So switching gears here, because I feel like you've gone too many questions without having one of these.
Oh man, all right.
Oh, you got a double one too.
Ooh.
Okay, let's get tactical. So you've been running supper club dinners for over a year across major cities: New York City, Paris, London, Boston, DC, and more. So walk me through your actual playbook. What goes into planning an event that attendees consistently describe as unlike any other exec dinner? Can you walk me step by step from like conception to execution?
Yeah, and we are really diversifying our event types as well. So it's not only exec dinner. So I think take it a step back to the very beginning, and then I'll talk through the dinner playbook. But oh man, mouth is all sticky.
I think those might be a little less sour than the grapes, so like there might have been a little mercy in those.
Thank you. So first, it's identifying the sales target. So I think I mentioned pipeline maturation, pipeline generation. It's determining which of those, like what are you trying to do? And this is a conversation with sales leaders. It's a conversation with leadership. It's what does, as a marketer, what does my success look like in the next quarter, 2 quarters, a year? And then how do you plan an event strategy around that? So if the goal is we need to penetrate a new industry, we have 0 contacts. They're in Minneapolis where we do not have an office, and help us out. The last thing you want to do is like, oh, let's go host a bunch of Minneapolis exec dinners without any contacts in the space and like see who shows up and that's how you get people who are there for the free food and don't actually know anything about your product. So in that case, what do you want to do? You probably want to look at third-party events and say, which events should we sponsor? Where should we start having the conversation? Where should we speak? Which publications do we need to be in? And then maybe 3 months down the line, that's when we come in and do some sort of summit around this industry, like educate that, right? So that's the first step. If we have really low hanging deals in let's keep Minneapolis. I don't know why, but we have 8 late stage deals in Minneapolis. They're all retail industry. Like we need to close these. Then it's like, okay, let's go do an exec dinner focused on retail. We'll do this conversation around how retail is, changing in the world of AI or whatever, generic thing like that. But have like a true conversation. And then you're saying, what does my success look like? Success looks like those 8 people from those companies attending my event, right? So you're working backwards. If you get 15 people there, the other 7, that's cherry on top, right? Yeah. That's great. Like, as long as they're good contacts. But what does success look like? It looks like getting those 8 low-hanging fruit deals accelerated, right? So that's the first step is orienting on what the actual goal is, like what you're actually trying to do. Now I know you want to talk about the exec dinner, so then it is finding the venue. I think this is an overlooked part a lot of times, and it takes a bit of testing, within these cities to figure out what works. But food, obviously important. Things that I look for are family style or plated dinners. I tend to like family style more, but plated works. But just understanding the dynamics and how that changes. Plated might work if it's a more senior audience, a more scripted, like having content works quite well with plated. But what I like to go for, and I think this isn't right or wrong, but it's personal preference, is I like the chaos. I like the loud, cacophony of people talking over each other, reaching. And I say this at the beginning. I'm like, when food comes out, help yourself. Don't wait till someone stops talking, because someone will always be talking. Like I like to create that, chaotic familial moment. But you should go in understanding what that dynamic will look like. The private room, is it fully private? Is it semi-private? If they say it's fully private, does that mean there's a curtain that makes it fully private? Does that mean you're walking upstairs into a really cool room? Like, that's probably the most important, because if you have a lot of outside noise and you're trying to do a discussion, you're banging your head against a wall. Like, it's really hard to do. Having a great room set up where it's not too small, not too large, people can move around, there's easy access to the restrooms, like that's most important. So to that point, like knowing the right questions to ask the restaurant staff. And this is actually a really easy way to tell if it's a good venue, because some venues, the restaurants, like the events manager will just say, yep, this is what we do for other corporate events. The lighting and music knobs are right behind this seat if you want to sit there. If you have any AV needs, this is what it looks like. And they've like done this a million times. Green flag, that's great. If they don't know how to answer those questions, it's not necessarily a disqualifier, but like you need to know that. The other point of that is when you are on site, and for me specifically as a facilitator, I want to be in lockstep with the server. Like I want the server to look at me when mains are about to come out, ask me if we're ready for appetizers, all of that. Like I want them to just have, this like, they should be my sidekick, right? Like they're part of this journey. And if you get a server who's not on that, it could be a really difficult battle, because you're looking like, now you're distracted. You're trying to flag them down. The music, it's too loud. You don't have the ability to change the music. Like there's just things like that where like I want constant communication. So that interview process is a pretty good indicator. In terms of invitations, this is probably the biggest challenge that I'm trying to overcome, is just how do we get the right people there? And there's a few ways. The best is to confirm a few people who you're friendlies with who carry high job titles. So, CTO, large bank, something along those lines. And then you can start promoting that to the other people that you're inviting. So it's like, hey, we're not random. Like you probably know this person, you're connected on LinkedIn. Like they're coming to this dinner, so you're in good hands. I typically rely on my sales team to invite folks, which can be a challenge. And this is most overcome by that first step, which is understanding what the goal of the event is. So ideally it's like, we're doing this event because we want these 5 people here, right? So now you have 5 sales reps, or however many, that understand that we're doing this event for them as a favor. Like we're helping you make money, right? So first let's get those in, and then we can promote out to other cold contacts. So we create different waves of invitations. I like to start inviting. I would like to say 6 weeks. It's probably more like 4 weeks out. But you typically see a curve where some people say yes really early. They like to plan far in advance. Most people do not respond until like 2 weeks out, and then you get this big bump, and like everyone's really nervous. Like, do we need to cancel? It's like it's fine. It all comes together. But really having a close relationship with sales, to understand who should be there, why we're doing this event. Like if you're doing an event in Minneapolis, I don't know why I keep picking on Minneapolis, but
Shout out Minneapolis.
I gotta keep doing it. If we're like, hey, we're doing this event here, go invite your contacts, and you don't know who those contacts are, pretty good indicator that you probably shouldn't be doing that event. Also leveraging any like VC partnerships, local influencers, anyone in the space that can help identify who the right people are, make those conversations. That's probably the next step once you get those primary individuals in. And then after that, it's just how do we fill the room?
So if you were to walk up to the CEO or you having a board meeting and you were like, the supper club was a success because of these three things. What are those three things and why are they a success for you?
I like to point to who paid for the dinner is what I like to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, so-and-so had a great conversation with this CTO. This CTO is already and this will happen where the next day I get an email that's like, Zach, thanks so much for inviting us. This was awesome. And then, CC whoever the sales rep is. I know we've been delayed in conversations, introducing you to my 3 direct reports so we can get this POC off the ground. And that's like gold.
Yeah.
They paid for the dinner, right?
Yeah.
So I like to do that. I always like to capture anecdotal feedback from internal attendees. What conversations happened, what did we learn, what feedback did we get. This is a bit of a controversy maybe, that I send the follow-up emails to attendees, which multiple ways to go about it, but I liked positioning myself as the host and saying, I'm the face of this event. I'm coordinating all the details. I'm facilitating it. I'm opening it up. So I should be the one to respond and 100%. Then CC.
Yeah.
You got to be careful there. I think depending on the level of seniority, maybe it is better for it to come from a founder or a C-level person to follow up. Different ways to go about it. But when I follow up directly, I always ask for feedback. Like, hey, I've CC'd the sales rep. I've CC'd our leadership. If you have any follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Also, we're running these events. We're trying to make them better. If you have any feedback, when it went well, when it didn't, we'd love to hear it. I don't get a ton of feedback that way, but it's better than like handing C-levels a paper form or like sending them a Google form afterwards. Like, would you recommend this to your friend? It's like, yeah, no, you have better things to do. So, try to capture as much as possible. But then it's, 1 month, 3 months looking back at who attended the dinner and seeing what happened to those deals. So we're trying to get better about contact roles on opportunities so that we can have better Salesforce reporting around this. But the honest answer is for these supper clubs specifically, it's really difficult to create an attribution machine because it is so high touch and so low volume.
Yeah. You feeling for another one? Can you handle it?
Let's hold off for a second.
Okay, I got you. So you've been doing the supper clubs for over a year. So there had to be an event that flopped or a detail you missed or something that looked good in practice, but when you executed, it was like, can you walk me through like an expensive mistake or something that kind of still keeps you up at night?
Yeah. I think one point that I already talked about is making sure you have the reasoning and the audience to attend the event before hosting it. I've made that mistake before where it's like, oh, what city haven't we been to that has a lot of accounts? Let's go to that city. And then we realize like, oh, there's like no one knows who we are in this city. And I think in the AI space specifically, we can get caught in the tech bubble of Austin and San Francisco and New York and just forget that like when you go to other cities, nobody knows who we are. So I've definitely made that mistake, which is less about the dinner itself and more just pulling teeth to get people there and being worried about attendance. And that's an expensive mistake to make. The other one is figuring out how to present content. So we did an event where we just had a lot of demand. We had some partners at the event who invited people, and it ended up, I try to keep these around 15 people in attendance, which that in itself is a bit large. Like 12 is probably the sweet spot. And we ended up having like 29 people come, which was great because it ended up being a bigger event. It wasn't what we planned for. And when it is that large, like you can't facilitate a discussion. So we ended up having 2 tables, 2 facilitators. Like it went okay, and I think everyone had a good time. But what I tried to do was a presentation at the beginning of who we are, why we're there. And I had my CEO at the time present it, and the restaurant had horrible AV, and this was like kind of a last minute thing, but like it was just weird. The audio is off, the video is like weirdly slanted, so everything was like obtuse, and we just shouldn't have done it. So that's like I think one of the mistakes that every time I make a mistake whether it's like the music was too loud and I didn't know how to change it, the lighting was off, I didn't know how to change it. The audio was like, it just feeds into the questions I ask before booking a venue the next time.
How did you manage that one with the bad AV and the bad? How did you like? Because I know if it was me, my stomach's dropping. I'm like, oh, this is bad. Like, how did you manage through that to get to the end?
I think it was probably an awkward 10 minutes, and then I was like, all right, everyone, food's out, and then it ended up being fine. People stayed really, like, the event itself wasn't a disaster, but during that time, I'm like, it was awkward,
Yeah.
But that's, another thing back to the events, why I like them is, like, the worst case scenario, it's awkward. But if you have good food, it's a cool place, like, as long as you don't colossally screw it up, like, worst case scenario is just a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time where your background may have worked against you in hospitality, where you may have over-indexed on hospitality and under-indexed on business outcomes?
I would say I know that I need to do more third-party events, and I just don't like them. But I know I need to do them.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, the supper club, the small exec dinners, the exec briefings, customer advisory boards, stuff that like require human touch. Like that's my jam. I love that stuff. But it's not always. There's no one size fits all approach. Like
1,000%.
sometimes you do need to, I almost named a agency name, so I might do that. But sometimes you do need to go to the corporate events in Orlando. I piece together who I'm talking about there. But sometimes you do need to go where a lot of CEOs from around the world attend because that's what the events are made for. Sometimes you need to do the AWS reInvents and the Google Cloud Next. Like those are massive pipeline drivers for us. So I think it's just this is probably more a point around hiring and resourcing is finding people who are detail oriented and logistical and put on really good activations at larger events, and just knowing that like that's probably not my sweet spot, and my inclination is to over index on the more bottom funnel intimate moments.
Okay, we're not gonna name drop. Have you ever been like what's the worst B2B event that you've attended? Not name dropping, but why? What made it so bad? What was that moment for you? You walked in and it was like, I don't know about this one.
I mean, I think it's probably happened a few times where I've gone to like an exec dinner, for marketing leaders, and same type of format. Like I'm definitely not the inventor of that roundtable format, but the dinner's long and there's multiple courses, and that's great. Like food is good, but I end up just getting so tired of having small talk with the person next to me that like 2 hours in, I'm like, oh, I just don't care like about what your kid is doing in school. Like we don't know each other. And so I mean that's happened multiple times where it's just I'm coming to learn and to talk, and also to see what creative things other people are doing, and it's so unscripted to where everyone's having small talk, and the other thing is only talking to a couple people at the table is really hard, where if it's a rectangular table, then that means I'm really only talking to the person in front of me and the people next to me. And if there's 20 people at the table, maybe I did want to talk to someone, on the end, I never got that opportunity. So it's like, I just leave and I'm like, was the food good? Yes. But was it worth the painful small talk that I had to have with some random person I'll never see again in my life? No,
Okay, well, congrats. You made it to the lightning round. So how this works is, got 5 questions for you. You don't got to eat these. I'll let you make it out alive. 5 questions, answer in 30 to 45 seconds. I may ask a simple follow-up question of why. But let's kick it off with the first one. So most overrated element of B2B events that marketers obsess over but actually doesn't move the needle?
Swag.
Swag, really? Why?
Because it either has to be really nice or it's probably going to go in the trash. So I just think like I have so many notebooks that I don't use, or, I think like gifting in itself is probably a different conversation, but it, especially with executive audiences, like you either need to do something that is very useful, very nice, or you have to do something that their kids want.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like, if you're giving water bottles, like, not going to be that great.
1,000%. All right, question number 2. If you could only choose one, this might be a painful question. World-class food or world-class service at an exec dinner, which one matters more?
World-class service every day.
Why is that?
Because people don't food. I actually think like there's a small subset of people that really, really understand food and the art of food, and Michelin star. It's kind of like going to an art museum. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know art very well. I like going to art museums. Yeah. It's fun. It's nice. But I can't. When I leave, I don't have a memory of the specific art pieces that I looked at, because like that's just not who I am as a person. There people that go and are incredibly moved by the historicity of art and the meaning and the all of this, like, absolutely, and I really respect them for that. I think food is actually the same way, where most people don't glean from a Michelin star experience what the chef is actually intending, because it is much more of an art. But what they do remember is how they felt, the service, the hospitality, all of that is actually, I think, much more memorable.
Okay. I'm going to throw this question in here because I think it's more important. So question 3, for someone who doesn't have a hospitality background, what's one skill or mindset they need to develop to run genuinely great events?
Facilitation. Understanding the art of facilitation, I think, is incredibly important. It's a practice in confidence, of how confident are you to steer a conversation. There's a fine line between facilitating or moderating. Those two can be a little interchangeable, and being a steward. So one thing that I learned in facilitator training is you actually don't want to show people where the bathroom is, which is interesting. As a facilitator, as a steward, you do, right? Mm-hmm. Like someone who works at the restaurant, that's who, like, the attendee shouldn't come up to you and say, you're here to show me where the bathroom is or to serve me my food. Like, you're not part. You're here to tell me what to talk about, and that's an art of understanding the different dynamic. Mm-hmm. That has been incredibly helpful for learning how to interrupt people who talk too long, in an artful way, not an impolite way. Steering conversation, understanding what to say when it's too quiet. I'll do little things like if I'm ready to move, like we've harped on a topic too long, or one mm-hmm. person's talking, I'll do little things where I'll like set my glass down too hard mm-hmm. and make a noise, and then people will look at me, and it'll actually give me like, okay, thanks. It'll give me like just understanding like how to steer a room.
I definitely want to talk to you about how to interrupt people. That's good. Question number 4: best piece of advice for someone planning their first executive dinner if they've never done it before. What's the one thing they need to get right?
Over-interview the venue. Just really, really understand the venue, and really have a clear thesis of why people are coming to this dinner, and anchor everything into that. So if they're coming to the dinner to talk about, the future of B2B marketing, what is your take? Is it that, there aren't going to be human marketers? Is it that we need more marketing teams, that we need less digital focus, whatever it is? Like, come in and have that take, have it be provocative, and also say, this is open for conversation and why we're coming.
Last question. In 5-10 years, will in-person dinners still be the reigning champion, or is there a way to replicate it to virtual, and there might be some room for like making virtual events high touch points and very hospitable?
No. If anyone invited me to a virtual experience, I'd probably never text them back. That's the quickest way to lose trust. I mean, I think there's a way to do virtual things. Like, if I want to learn something very tactical and I can do it from the comfort of my own home or my office, that's great. But I don't want to have I'm going to be multitasking. Yeah. I don't want a hospitality experience digitally.
1,000%. All right. Well, Zach, appreciate you for hopping on the Sour SaaS podcast. Shameless plug. Shout out Cognition. Well, what is Cognition, if you want to just break it down for?
Yeah, Cognition is an AI agent lab. So we make Devin, which is the fully autonomous AI software engineer. So you can have it build websites, applications. It understands large code bases really well, and is part of the future of software engineering.
How can people find you?
LinkedIn, Zach Diamond, best way.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you heard it. We had Zach Diamond on the Sour SaaS podcast. So if you need to upgrade your exec dinners or B2B events as a whole, you know who to hit up. So until next time, see you.